Everybody. I apologize for me running a little bit late, jumping off of one Zoom call into the next. Again, I'm Ivory Matthews, and I am the Chief Executive Officer for Columbia Housing. I'd just like to welcome each and every one of you here to discuss the repositioning of our public housing program using the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program for our residents at Latimer Manor. I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Herrera, and she's going to provide an overview of what's next.
Great, thank you. As Ms. Matthews said, we're here this afternoon to discuss with you the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. We're going to show a short slide presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions after the presentation. Ms. McRoberts, do you want to give a little bit of housekeeping so everybody knows what to do with questions?
Sure, thanks. Thank you. First of all, we are recording today's session, and that is so we can post that on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. If you have any friends or neighbors who you know have not come, or you want to refer back to it for some additional information, that will be available within the next couple of days. We are asking that everyone keep themselves on mute. We've got a lot of folks on the call today, and just to make it easy for everyone to participate and hear, just keep yourself on mute. If you have questions, we are asking that you put them in the chat box. You can access chat from the bar at the bottom of your screen, and you can type your question in right over here to the right. So if you have any questions, please put those there, and we will respond to them after the presentation.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, my name is Cindy Herrera, and I am the Chief Development Officer for Columbia Housing. And we're going to talk today about the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. We're going to introduce it to you. We will be conducting 2 meetings, and the second meeting will be held on October the 19th. And at that time, we'll go into more specifics about specifically what's going to happen with Latimer Manor. So let me start first by talking about the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. There we go. What is RAD? It's referred to as RAD. It's a demonstration program that began in 2012. What RAD does is it actually takes properties out of the public housing program, and it provides project-based Section 8 contracts for the properties. Improvements are made to the properties either through rehabilitation or by demolition and new construction of a new community. Why are we doing RAD? Well, basically it's because the public housing communities are no longer being supported as needed for the type of capital needs that the properties are needing at this point in time. Across the country, HUD estimates that there's approximately $60 billion of repairs that need to be made in public housing. HUD refers to these repair costs as capital needs. So what are the capital needs of the property? The reason that the public housing properties have such high capital needs is because historically, Congress has not provided enough funding for housing authorities to be able to keep up with those capital needs. As a result, housing authorities have had to make difficult choices between things like, do we have enough money to fix the roofs or replace the plumbing? Or do we need to demolish the public housing because it's in such bad condition? So what RAD does is it's a way that public housing authorities can get money to rehabilitate, repair, or to rebuild units without having to wait on additional funds from Congress. What does RAD mean to you as a tenant? It's very important that that you understand that RAD has built in by Congress some protections for the tenants. First of all, you will not lose your housing assistance, and you will not be required to be rescreened because of a RAD conversion. Even though RAD will use private money to make the repairs or to rebuild the housing, it's still going to get money from HUD, and that's going to be through the subsidy that we get for the project-based vouchers on the property. And RAD requires that the converted properties continue to be owned or controlled by either a public or a nonprofit entity. So those are some of the protections. This chart here just shows a little bit about what is the condition before RAD and what happens after RAD. So first of all, we know that the properties are not funded at 100% of public housing money that we're entitled to because Congress simply doesn't give us enough money. What happens after RAD is the properties are placed on a stable funding platform, which means we know how much funding they're going to get every year. In the public housing program, we cannot go out and borrow money to make repairs. But once we convert the property under this RAD program, we can now go out and get private capital that will allow us to make repairs or rebuild. Currently, the funding that we receive for public housing does not give us enough money to deal with deteriorated conditions. After we convert to RAD, because we can access private capital, we can then do repairs or we can rebuild that's going to improve the conditions of the property. And then finally, in public housing, you cannot move without losing your housing assistance. If you move out of Latimer Manor today, you won't have any housing assistance. After we convert to RAD, residents will have a choice to receive a tenant-based voucher after you have lived in the RAD property for a full year. So those are some of the changes that happens with RAD. And this, again, is part of the reason why we are going to go through the RAD program. How does RAD affect your rent? That's always one of the first questions that we get from residents. Project-based vouchers, which is the platform that will be used for the property after the RAD conversion, uses the same formula to create the tenant portion of the rent. It's based on 30% of your adjusted income. So most residents will not have any type of rent increase as a result of a RAD conversion. However, if you are paying a flat rent in public housing, you may have to gradually pay more rent over time. And the reason for that is because the Section 8 or the voucher program does not have a flat rent. So your rent would always be based on 30% of your income. If in fact you are in a flat rent and your rent was to go up more than 10% or would require you to pay more than $25 in additional rent, it would be phased in over a 3-year period. So it would not happen all at one time. One of the things we want to point out is that the RAD process is a long process and it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years to get through the process. So this just kind of lays out what all these processes are. What we're doing today is we're starting the process to work on number 2 here, which is the RAD application. We've done our strategic planning where we've looked at all of our properties and said, what are we going to do with them? And now we're working on the RAD application. When we looked at Latimer, we said that's going to be a RAD conversion. So in order for us to submit the application, the first thing we have to do is meet with the residents. So today is the first of the 2 meetings that I mentioned earlier. After we submit the application, then we receive something called a CHAP, which is a commitment from HUD that says we can go forward. Then we have to go through all of this financing process till we get to a closing, and finally we do the new construction at the property. What's most important is to understand what the next steps are. And number 1, do not move, okay? Nobody needs to move right now. We're at the very beginning of the process. And so these are initial meetings in which we will share more information with you. As we go through this process, we will continue to have meetings with all of the residents to keep you informed about the plans for your community. We want to make sure that everyone joins us for our next meeting for Latimer Manor, which is scheduled for October the 19th. So I'm going to get out of the slide presentation now, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. So Lee, do you want to feed the questions to me and then I can try to answer them as best as can be?
Yeah, Ms. Herrera, we are getting a couple now. One of the first questions, of course, is should I start looking for a new unit now? What should I do?
Thank you. Absolutely not. As I just said on the last slide, do not move, do not start looking. This is the very beginning of the process. When it comes time for you to move, you will get a formal written notice that says it's time for you to move, and this is the process, and this is what you will go through when it's time for you to move. So, but like I said, in order for us to begin this process, we have to have a meeting with the residents to tell you what RAD is and what is going to happen with your community.
That kind of plays into the next question we got, Ms. Herrera. Got someone that made a comment and did a question that said, this is not happening right now. So why are you informing us about something that's going to happen in a couple of years?
Well, the reason that we're informing you right now is because we can't start the process until we tell you that we're going to go through the process. HUD has a requirement that we have to first talk with the residents and tell you about the RAD program and tell you what's going to happen as we go through the process over the next couple of years. This is the very beginning of our journey, but it will be a great journey as we go forward, and we're able to provide everybody with a beautiful new community.
Gotcha. What sort of time frame somebody is asking is going to be involved? I guess from start to finish. Once we take this into consideration, and then the actual once work starts on the site.
Yeah. Well, actually, what I anticipate is that our application will go in by November the 1st. And then at that time, it'll take HUD about 60 days. We should get the go-ahead from HUD at the end of the year, which says you've been approved to move forward with the RAD process. At that point, then we will come back to all of you with our plan, our specific plan for what we're going to do. We have to go all the way through what's called a closing process to put all of the financing in place. Again, important to remember, under the RAD process, there's no money that HUD is giving to us. What we're going to do to redevelop the community will come through private money. We will go out and we'll borrow money from a lender. We use something called tax credits, which investors provide us with equity to redevelop the community. So as we go through that process, I would anticipate that we would have a financial closing sometime about mid-year next year. So about 1 year from now is when we would anticipate that all of you would be notified about what the moving process would be at that point in time. So we're about a year away before anybody would actually be moving. And that's our best guesstimate at this point. You know, we have to work through a HUD process, and HUD sometimes, you know, doesn't move quite as fast as we'd like them to, but taking into consideration the HUD timelines, we believe that probably just about a year from now, maybe a little sooner, we can start the process of relocating people and, you know, tearing down Latimer and being able to rebuild the new community.
Right. Well, we've got some questions coming in about the process itself, and somebody's asking, when it does come time for families to move, will they be limited to Richland County and the city of Columbia, or would they be able to go outside of the jurisdictional limits of the housing authority?
Yeah, for relocation purposes, everybody will be provided with a voucher, and you will be able to take your voucher. You will have to determine at the time that it's time for you to move, you will have to determine if you want to take your voucher and go somewhere outside of Richland County, then you will have to tell us that you're going to permanently move and you don't want to come back to Latimer Manor. If you want to come back to Latimer Manor, then you would have to stay within the area in order to be able to return. Everybody, I do want to emphasize, everybody has a guaranteed right of return. I said that in the first slide, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that. You have a guaranteed right to come back to the new community, and you will not be rescreened or have to requalify to come back to the new community.
Now, what about families who have not been there a year? You had mentioned a year.
It does not matter how long you have currently lived at Latimer Manor. If you live there at this point in time, then basically you will be eligible to be able to participate in the RAD program. The only thing that will stop you from participating, and I want everybody to hear me because this is very important, you must continue to comply with your lease. If you violate your lease, then you could jeopardize your benefits under the RAD program. So that's very important to remember. You must pay your rent and you must comply with all other provisions of your lease in order to be eligible for the RAD program.
That's really good information and important for everybody to keep in mind. So Ms. Herrera, as the process starts, what's happened to the residents as that transition gets underway?
Immediately, nothing will happen. Everybody will stay living at Latimer Manor, continuing to comply with your lease. We'll continue to manage the property. And then as we start down the process, we'll come back to you with more meetings about the specifics. And you will have plenty of time before anybody has to move. And so at our next meeting on October the 19th, we're going to share with you a little bit more about the specific plans of what we will rebuild on Latimer Manor. And we're also going to transfer some of the units to a couple of new communities that will be under construction next year. And you'll have the option of going to those communities as well. So you'll have a lot of options. And as we move down the road through this process, you'll be informed of all those options, both via meetings as well as you'll have informational documents in writing. We will have a specific relocation specialist who will be based at Latimer Manor in the office out there, who will be available to you every day to assist you with questions or concerns or anything that you need for relocation purposes.
Now, as far as the relocation process itself, can you talk to us about what happens? Will Columbia Housing help residents move? Will we help residents pack? Are we going to be, will there be someone available to help families find units?
Yes.
We
will have a full-time relocation specialist, as I said, that will be at Latimer Manor, and we will assist everybody. We will give you all of your options. You'll have options to take a tenant-based voucher and look for a place on your own. You may have options to move to new properties that we're building elsewhere in Columbia and Richland County. You will have options to move to some of our other public housing temporarily. You'll be able to take a voucher and move outside of the area if that's what you want to do. You will have a whole lot of options as far as your housing choices, and we will lay out all those options to you. If you decide to take a voucher, we work with many landlords, hundreds of landlords, and we will continue to work with those landlords to offer comparable units for your family. All of your moving costs will be covered by the housing authority. We will provide packing materials. You will have the options of doing a self-move, or we will have a moving company that will assist you. We will assist you with packing if you're elderly or disabled. We will provide you with all the materials to pack. You'll receive a whole lot of notices about relocation before it's ever time to move. So you'll have a lot of advance notice.
So this is just a really preliminary meeting right now.
That's correct. This is a very early meeting simply to tell you that we are going to submit an application for the RAD program and to tell you what RAD is, so that when you hear us talk about RAD, you'll understand what it is. At our next meeting, we'll talk more specifics about Latimer Manor and what we're going to do there. We have a partner, a private partner that will be working with us, and we'll share more plans with you at our next meeting. And then, we will probably after that be having meetings about every couple months to share with you all of our plans.
And Ms. Herrera, that kind of plays into the next question. Somebody wants to know if they can get a sneak peek at what the new community is going to look at. Do we have plans we can share with everybody today?
We don't have anything to share with you today. The conceptual plans are still very much in the design phase right now. And so at our next meeting on the 19th, we will try to have a rough conceptual plan that we can share with you. One thing I can guarantee you as we go through this process is that things change. We will want your feedback and your input as we go through this process. And so we'll be, it will change up until we get everything finalized down the road. So it'll be a good 6 months before the final plans are completed.
What can you tell us about residents who are at zero income or who are paying flat rents? How will the RAD conversion affect them?
Yeah, if you're at zero income, the RAD conversion will have no impact on you. As I mentioned earlier, the rent for the project-based voucher program is exactly the same formula as public housing. And so your rent would continue to be based at 30% of your income. If you have no income, then 30% of zero is zero, okay? However, if you are at public housing flat rent, most likely the reason you're at flat rent is because the flat rent is less than 30% of your income. So it's important to remember that the voucher program does not have a flat rent. In the voucher program, you always pay 30% of your income. So it's possible that if you're at flat rent, your rent could change. In fact, more than likely it will change. That change in rent or that increase in rent would be phased in over a 3-year period. It would not be done all at one time.
Ms. Herrera, we're getting a couple of questions that are a little on the tough side, but I know we want to address these concerns. We've got some folks who are at Latimer now, obviously, everybody who's on the call with us, that are concerned about the condition of the property there now. What can we tell folks about those concerns, and if they have concerns about specific issues, what should we do?
Thank you. First of all, I want to say that we are aware of the conditions at Latimer Manor, and that's why we are embarking on this journey to do this RAD conversion, so that we can build a new community that will be state-of-the-art, brand new, very, very, very nice community for all of you. We know that our residents deserve better quality housing than what we are currently able to provide. However, if you have any emergency issues right now, I want to encourage everybody to make sure that you are reporting those through the work order system, and that you're talking to your current property managers if you have any issues. So please, we will be continuing to manage the property until the very last tenant is gone. We will be managing the existing units. We will try to keep them in the best condition that we possibly can in the interim. We know that they need a lot of work, and that is why we are embarking on this process. So bear with us. We are going to provide you with a beautiful new community that everyone will be very proud of once we rebuild. But we do want to make sure that any issues you have right now, you are calling those in and talking to your property manager to make sure that any issues currently get resolved.
And just as sort of an aside here, the MedCom number, if you do have emergency situations, you can call the MedCom number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that number is 803-251-2747. Just to put that out there for folks to do, just as a reminder.
Thank you, Lee.
Getting a couple more questions about the voucher process. Obviously everybody's excited about the possibility of that. Folks with zero income, are they going to be eligible to receive a voucher during this process?
Yes, absolutely. As I want to emphasize again that everybody will be eligible to receive a voucher, you will be provided with all the assistance necessary to help you through that process. If you have zero income, you can still receive a voucher, because the housing authority will provide subsidy to the landlord that you ultimately select. Obviously, the voucher program has program requirements. When it's time for people to get their vouchers, you're going to go through to a class called a briefing, and that class will tell you all about the voucher and how it works. It'll tell you the size that you qualify for, the bedroom size you qualify for, how much rent you have available to find a unit. All of the information about the voucher program will be provided to you in this briefing class that you will have to attend before you get your voucher.
Great. We're putting that MedCom number in the chat also, so for anybody that may have either not caught that when I was saying it, or for whatever reason, it is in the chat now as well. Boy, we've gotten a lot of questions answered. If anybody else has any, go ahead and let's get these in. We're excited to be able to give this information to everyone and answer your questions as they come up.
Saw another one just pop in, Lee. Catch it. No. Very important that you attend our next meeting on October the 19th. It will be a little bit more information specific to Latimer Manor. And so at that point, we'll give you more information. The most important thing that we want to stress today is do not move. Nothing is happening yet. This is the beginning of the process. And if you have any questions about the RAD program, in the notice that we sent out, there was a flyer that was attached to that notice. That has a lot of questions and answers regarding the RAD program. So it tells you a little bit more. It covers some of the things we went over today, and it has a lot of good Q&A in it as well. Someone said her question did not get answered. This is to Robin.
Let's see, I thought we were. Ms. Robbins' question was one of the ones about the concerns about it.
Right.
Just will another year cause any serious?
I want to reiterate to everybody that Ms. Robbins' question went on to say, are there anything at Latimer Manor that would cause any harm or danger to anybody at this time? I want to stress that we are not aware of any conditions in any occupied units currently. There are no conditions that are of any occupied units that we are aware of. Again, if you see or sense something in your particular unit, please make sure that you contact the maintenance and the property management staff. There are a few vacant units at Latimer Manor that we will not be reoccupying because there are, some conditions there that we just don't think are best for people to stay in them. As units vacate, if anybody voluntarily leaves the property, we will simply be boarding up the units. We will not be reoccupying any units at this point in time.
Got a question that's coming in here at the end, that there may be an influx of people trying to find a place. What if folks have a hard time getting a landlord to accept vouchers in time when we get to that point?
Yeah, we understand that, and we're working with landlords every day to create more housing opportunities. We do understand that finding good housing is a challenge right now because the rents are so high. The Housing Authority has raised the rents for the voucher program to the maximum that we can right now. One of the things that we are working on is requesting a waiver from HUD to see if we can raise those rent levels a little bit more. There's housing in Columbia, but the rents are higher than what the vouchers will currently support. And so that's very important. And that's something that we want to make sure that, we're able to make sure that everybody has a unit. Again, I just want to stress that we are going to work with everybody until everyone is relocated. So no one will be left without housing, and we will assist you to the best of our ability in working with landlords. Very important to remember that, you have to present yourself well to landlords, and it's important that, you be a good tenant, because landlords will check on things to make sure that they, the voucher program is voluntary for landlords, but we have a landlord liaison that works in our voucher program, and he is constantly reaching out and contacting more landlords. So we hope to have continued landlords available for all of you.
Ms. Herrera, we're still getting some concerns about got concerns about mold. Looks like we've got somebody who says she's in a hotel because issues in her unit specifically are so bad. What do these folks need to do?
They need to be in communication with their property manager. Okay, the property manager. We do know that we've had some units that do have mold, and those are the units that we are boarding up and not reoccupying. But if you have any concerns, I can't stress enough how important it is to take those concerns to property management, and we will accommodate everyone. If someone is in a hotel, please talk with your property manager so that we can make sure that we find you a unit that you can return to. It may not be at Latimer Manor, but we will certainly make sure that everybody is in a safe and healthy environment until we can get these properties rebuilt. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, but it's something that we're moving just as fast as we can to get all of our properties repositioned.
Do we have the property manager for Latimer on? I thought I saw Ms. Scott. Just if maybe you could pop in, say hello, and let folks know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, Mina, could you do that, please? Unmute yourself. Mina, can you hear us?
Is she still?
She's muted.
Okay.
I'm
There
here. I'm
she is.
sorry. I'm here.
Okay. you just introduce yourself to everyone and make sure everyone has your phone number? Maybe you can put it in the chat for the number at the office so that they know how to contact you.
Okay, I'm Mina Scott Barnes, the community manager for Latimer Manor and Marion Street. And I'm sorry for the noise. We are moving people at this time, but I can be reached at 803-376-6127. I'm at extension 423.
Can y'all hear me?
I'm sorry?
Miss Scott.
Yes.
Miss Scott.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't know if y'all could hear me or not, and I didn't want y'all to think that I wasn't listening.
Oh, okay. Okay. And my email is mscott@Columbia.
I need to write this stuff down.
We're going to put it in the chat. Miss Scott will put it in the chat,
Okay.
okay?
Yes, I'll put it in the chat, and it's also posted at the front door where you can reach me. And I get emails and voicemails on my phone, so I get them immediately.
Okay.
But I will type it in the chat for everyone to reach me.
Lee, I think I saw a couple more questions pop in just now.
Yeah, you've got somebody that is asking again about the voucher. She's self-employed and her income changes. Will that impact her voucher? And are we going to be doing credit reports?
Well, the first answer is we will not do credit reports, but that doesn't mean that a landlord that you may apply to with your voucher, they have the option of doing a credit report. So the housing authority will not do a credit report. And I want to stress again that there will be no rescreening when you return. Okay, so but if you want to take a voucher and rent with a private landlord, the landlord may choose to do one, and that would be something you'd have to work out with each landlord, and we will help you through that as well. And then what was the other question? Oh, about someone that's self-employed. It doesn't matter if you're self-employed. We're basically going to just, the documentation you would have to provide would basically just be your income tax where you show what your employment income is. And basically that would be utilized to determine your portion of the rent, but it does not impact your ability to have a voucher or not have a voucher if you're self-employed.
Two other questions, and one I know you've touched on, but if you don't mind re-answering this, can the voucher be used outside of Richland County? And will there be a time frame for folks to use the voucher once they receive it?
Yes, let me answer both of those questions. First of all, yes, we are going to allow anyone who chooses to be able to use your voucher outside of Richland County. That's called portability. That's when you take your voucher someplace else, and then we have to turn you over to the housing authority where you move to, and they will then help you with your voucher. So you will be able to do that. That's not a problem. And then secondly, the time frame. The voucher will initially be good for 90 days, but because this is a relocation, you will continue to retain your voucher. And so we will continue to work with you until you make a decision on what you want to do. And so your voucher will continue to be valid for a long period of time, but we will work with you because obviously in order to move forward with the project development, we're going to have to vacate the property. And so it'll initially be good for 90 days, but we will continue to extend those vouchers to work with you. In some cases, we've had to move tenants temporarily, maybe to another public housing unit, and then you can continue to search so that you have a place to live while you're searching.
Right. And then one last question, and this kind of goes back to the don't move now, but when do we really anticipate starting to issue vouchers for the folks out at Latimer?
We believe that it's going to be, the soonest would be probably next July. The latest would probably be about October of next year. So it will be in 2022. It'll be that point in time before we are able to start the relocation process. As I showed in the slides, we have to go through a process with HUD, and we have to secure a lot of approvals from HUD before we will be able to allow anybody to move.
Great.
Sounds like a long time, and I'm sorry that it takes a long time, but it's just the way the HUD process is. It's kind of, you know, it's what HUD requires us to do. So today's meeting, like I said, is just a very early meeting in which we're telling you about RAD and that the property will convert to RAD. Under the RAD program, it's our intent to submit the application. And as I said, we hope to have, you know, our application approved by the end of this year or very early in January of next year. And then we'll be able to start moving forward more with the process. And then we'll get to a point where HUD will then approve everything. And at that point is when we will be able to start the relocation process.
Great.
Any other questions? These have been great questions. We thank you all very much for participating with us today. I want to just summarize by saying, do not move. Nothing's happening right now. We're just giving you the preliminary information. We will be having a second meeting on October the 19th. We will share with you then more information about Latimer Manor and what our plans are to redevelop the property. And then after that, it'll be quiet for a couple of months because we'll submit the application to HUD and we'll be waiting for HUD to be able to respond to our application. Once we get the approval from HUD, we'll let you know, and then we'll be moving through the process of the final design, going out and securing the private money that we need to redevelop the community. And then we have to submit all of that to HUD again. And then finally, we'll get a final approval from HUD. So as I said, we're probably, you know, it's going to be next summer before we're really ready probably to start letting you know that it might be time to start moving.
I'm sure that.
Thank you all. Yes.
Quickly.
Anything else? Nope. Thank you all very, very much. Again, have a great rest of your day. We appreciate you. And don't forget to join us again on October the 19th. The link for the meeting on the 19th was on the same letter that we sent to you. So keep that letter and make sure you join us again on the 19th. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everybody.